Welcome to another episode of Health Matters with PA Lynn Szabo. I'm Heather. And what are we going to talk about today, Lynn?
We're going to talk about Trans Awareness Week, which has been actually going on in Del Norte from the 13th of November to the 19th with a culmination, and this is what I'd like to focus on Transgender Day of Remembrance, which is November 20th. And the purpose of this special day is to memorialize those who have died from transphobic violence, which should also include those who were murdered for being trans and also, sadly, those who chose to die by suicide because they just couldn't, carry the burdens anymore. And this is also to draw attention to the continued violence directed toward trans people. So the initial Trans Day of Remembrance was memorializing the murders of Rita Hester in Allston, Massachusetts, Chanel Pickett in Watertown, Massachusetts, and Monique Thomas in Dorchester, Massachusetts. In fact, November 20th is the day of Chanel Pickett's murder. And some of her friends were coming together 3 years after she was murdered, and they didn't really clearly remember her anymore. And one of her friends felt that was wrong. And so she wanted to bring Chanel's name and bring back the essence of who she was as a human being, and also emphasize their friendship for her, and probably as part of mourning the loss of her.
Yeah. And so, if I'm not mistaken, within the trans community, even within the LGBTQIA plus community, trans violence is higher than that, and the suicide rates among our trans youth and our trans neighbors is higher. Is that correct?
Right. And so there's a lot to remember on that day that's sad. And most celebrations include a reading of the names of trans people, the kind of say their name, don't forget them. Who have suffered violence in whatever community in the last year. The other thing about it in our community is that I would imagine that this is a hard community to be a trans person in.
In Del Norte?
In Del Norte.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think there's probably more trans people here than we're really aware of. There's definitely some people who are easily identifiable, but there's a lot of people, I think, who are under the radar and just trying to live their lives without being hassled.
Under the radar is they've transitioned and they just don't tell anybody about it, or under the radar they haven't transitioned and they're trying to blend?
Probably both.
Okay.
Probably both. Violence against trans people is currently epidemic in the United States, but trans people have been killed over history, including in Nazi concentration camps and targets more recently, especially heinous in Indonesia. And sadly, it's not just these current times, but it's been over time. So I think we have to adopt a better way to coexist and to respect each other and to honor each other's journeys.
Right. I don't understand violence to begin with, but I don't understand why you'd be violent against somebody because they're part of a community that you're not, or because they're gay, or because they're transgender, it makes no sense. It's just,
you don't get brownie points for harassing people.
Right. It's just asinine is not liking somebody for the color of their skin. It's like that's right. It's illogical. It just there's no logic to it.
Yeah, I don't get it either. But as far as a healthcare provider, I thought I read up a little bit on some of the medical concerns of transgender medicine because it is available here. And actually, this is exciting news this is breaking news at Del Norte Community Health Center. I just found out about it today, is they have a telehealth PA. I think he lives somewhere in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
But he's willing to do gender-affirming care in a telehealth setting.
Oh, wow. You're kidding.
Which is super exciting because although we have a great trans team, or at least Del Norte Community Health Center and their associated clinics in Humboldt have a great trans team. That team is down in Humboldt, and that's not always practical for people who live up in the hills or maybe,
It's really
in our
not.
county. So to be able to have a telehealth provider who's willing to give gender affirming care in our community is like mind blowing.
That is.
So that one's hot off the press.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, because we hear about this all the time in the news and things too, right? With like gender affirming care. So I look at gender affirming care as if you are in menopause and you are taking hormones, that's gender affirming care. If you're male and you're taking testosterone because yours is low, that's gender affirming care. We all, in some degree or not, at some point in our life, have some form of gender affirming care.
Yeah, you think people could be able to relate to that, even if it was
Right?
somebody that they didn't personally relate to. But yeah, I think that's an excellent point. Medical care should be respectful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's like a non.
Right, that should just be a given.
Yeah. And correct, especially with gender affirming care, correct pronouns should be used and findings should be charted correctly with the proper terminology. And it's really helpful to use the anatomical or organ inventory in the medical records.
Okay.
So, as a provider, initially this was super confusing for me because, working at Planned Parenthood, when we saw women, we charted on pink paper, and when we saw men, we charted on blue paper, and they had different schematics for, identifying different body parts and things like that. And it took me a minute to think through, okay, this is a trans woman, and we should chart on pink paper because women get charted on pink paper.
Yeah.
So it's not as easy as you would think, but it's so straightforward, and just half a moment of using your brain, you should be able to figure it out. But I think that using the anatomical or the organ inventory instead of pink and blue paper is just way more helpful.
Right.
One thing that I found interesting is that lab work is difficult to interpret because nobody really knows what normals are.
Oh.
I mean, we have a long history of understanding what, let's say, normals for hemoglobin or or hematocrit. So those are values that maybe are useful in evaluating anemia. And so we know what's normal for a woman, we know what's normal for a male, but we don't necessarily know what's normal for trans people. It's a little harder to understand.
Is that because the population of trans people is so low and we just don't study it?
I think as people just don't think about it.
Yeah.
But there's precedent for it. Let's say, for example,
There's definitely a need.
yeah, the normals for hemoglobin for pregnant women are different than for non-pregnant women.
Okay.
So this is not a huge, big mystery that we have
Absolutely.
to rack our brains at. We just have to realize that, we might have to interpret things differently.
Kind of like when we decided that maybe we shouldn't plan all crash test dummies to be around the average height of a white male and the average weight of a white male, and that
pretty
we're all
much.
different, and
Pretty
maybe
much.
we should make cars safe for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
Recommended
Surprise.
recommended healthcare screening and management is different depending on whether people are transgendered women or transgendered men. So that's where you go back to using the anatomical or organ inventory. So what organ are you actually screening?
Okay.
And then you can, then the screening becomes relatively straightforward. There might be some variation for somebody who's on, taking exogenous hormones, but there are so many more complex things in medicine. This shouldn't be one of them.
No, you did a heart episode a couple of weeks back, and that one was very confusing. This doesn't seem to be that confusing to me. Respect
No.
each other. We all have innate dignity.
Yeah, straightforward. So complete screening should include screening for breast cancer, screening for cervical cancer, screening for prostate cancer, screening for cardiovascular disease, as well as diabetes, high cholesterol, which is known in my world as hypercholesterolemia, and osteoporosis. The osteoporosis was like a what? That was a light bulb moment for me. Because I think oftentimes about postmenopausal biologic women who have to think about their bone strength, but not necessarily how taking hormones for a long period of time might change somebody else's bone strength.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So this is why is this why it's important for Open Door and for other medical providers to have gender affirming care clinics and to have those people who understand those things?
I totally think so. And I think they follow protocols. And I think the protocols are set by places like UCSF, who are probably 10 years ahead of good medical practice from where we are today.
Okay.
But that information's not like it's locked up in a vault. If somebody had an interest in it, they could easily go to a conference and get that information. So counseling may be needed and should be offered. And that's kind of like the human condition. And that's also something that we have problems with in our community. Counseling is hard to come by.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. So the counselors here should be, in my opinion, should be open to working with the trans community and should also at least be respectful and probably encouraged to go to things like conferences and stuff and to figure out how they can best serve the community.
Okay.
And then, of course, safer sex should still be discussed, and that should be discussed with everybody who's sexually active, probably. So when I'm going to be at the memorial on Thursday night, I'm going to be bringing along the usual condoms. We have a couple that are glow in the dark. Let me know what you think. Anyway. So, when I was talking with my colleagues who were very, very kind in helping me collect my thoughts for this particular talk, they were also talking about the resilience of the trans community. So, we open this up by talking about despicable murders and people who have been driven to suicide. But they're telling me that the trans community also has a great deal of resilience.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So what are ways to observe Trans Awareness Week? So vigils, including reading of the names, because that we remember them is super important. And that's the whole reason that the people who originated this remembrance celebration moved forward with it, because they were alarmed that people that they loved were being forgotten.
Yeah.
And as I said before, it's also an opportunity to emphasize trans resilience and well-being. And you can do things that are really positive, like hosting art installations, which I have to mention that would not be my thing because I'm a scientist. But I think it's important. Maybe trans artists in the community could have their work displayed. Healing circles, which I think can be important. These are kind of ceremonies that can be highly personalized to the need. And I'm thinking along the lines of maybe a blessing way.
Okay.
Or, it would really be hard. Or whatever, the person's address the person's need specifically,
kind of tailored to what your spiritual beliefs and practices are.
Oh, totally. And have the person's friends who feel like they want to support this person in this way. And then, it can kind of come together organically, I think, from that.
Yeah.
Candlelit walks. Those are always beautiful.
Those are.
Yeah. Educational panel discussions, which is kind of what this is, actually. A panel or two. But that, I imagine, is going to be happening on Thursday night. Sharing of resources and donations. So I'm definitely going to be sharing resources in the Open Door system. They've given me some resources to share with the community. But the one thing that caught my eye was donations to trans-led organizations. And that makes sense to me because giving money or support to an organization,
Yeah, that's kind of like when you go online and you're trying to, in February for Black History Month, when you're trying to support Black-owned businesses, or you are trying to uplift Black women, to ensure when you order those products and those things that you're doing it from a site that's actually Black-owned, or that it's, you're buying something that's actually made by a Native American and not somebody who is taking the, what do they call it? Cultural appropriation, I think is what it's called. Yeah.
Right. You're not using your idea of what it should be.
Yeah.
You're supporting the community's idea.
Yeah.
So when's this going to be? So in our community, the Transgender Day of Remembrance will be Thursday night, November 20th, at St. Paul's Episcopal Church on Mac.
On Mackin, that's did you say it was the St. Paul's Episcopal Church? Mm-hmm. Okay.
From 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And there'll be a number of people there tabling. I'll be there. And, we'll have some swag to give away if that matters to anybody. But I think you also said patient services. I know Pat Black is going to be there.
Yeah, I think she's going to be an usher. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that is her congregation's church. And then they hosted it last year as well. And you were talking a little bit about the resiliency within the trans community and being there last year and having that incredible honor of being able to read the names of my trans brothers and sisters. It was somber in every way, but beautiful and
Respectful.
Incredibly respectful. And I look at it is the and I explained this to somebody prior that it's like a crocus in winter. It's like that flower that blooms through the concrete that says, I am here. I am still here. There is hope. There is a way. The cold will leave. We can break through the rock. We can do this.
We can celebrate the sun.
We can celebrate the sun. And it is incredibly beautiful. And I feel honored and privileged and blessed, to be honest with you, to be included into these things. So it's phenomenal. And I would encourage anybody who hasn't gone and who can be respectful and is wanting to be an ally to attend on Thursday from 6 to 9 at the St. Paul's Episcopal Church?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
On Mackin.
On Mackin.
Yeah. So, and I want to thank the people who helped me with the show today, as I found it really opened up my understanding about this part of the community. So, okay. So, I think all of us know trans people in our lives. I definitely have taken care of trans patients in my practice. I don't really do the hormonal kind of care, but I have been puzzled by the healthcare screening. And so I, have had to think this through with a patient here and a patient there. It is hard for them up here to get care because really, until recently, the best care was really out of the area. The open door providers or Del Norte Community Health Center providers are open and friendly and welcoming, but not necessarily educated with the hormonal stuff. So the addition of this new provider, even though he's actually in Pennsylvania, I think they said he was in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
But
still, it's a resource.
I know, and
we don't have many of those here, Lynn.
Right? Who happily put himself forward as a resource for the community. So they're excited administratively. They're excited at Del Norte Community Health Center, and then, he sounds super positive. And this, like I said, is hot off the press.
Yeah, that's just absolutely amazing to have that. And I know that they're not physically here and telehealth is a little bit weird, but there's a lot of people that are far more comfortable with that form of care. And we still have the ability that if you want to see a physical person and a provider to come here who could use that off-site provider, that telehealth provider for information and for those types of things and say, can you help me with this? Can you?
Right.
And then we have our resources in Eureka as well. So.
Well, Dustin Jacode has done a lot of telehealth for them, and they have a way that using a medical assistant and kind of electronic equipment, they can look in somebody's ears if they need to, or they can listen to somebody's heart if they need to. And Dustin,
oh wow, you're kidding!
Dustin has access to components of the physical exam that you wouldn't really think he does.
Yeah, I had no idea. I've never had a telehealth visit that way, so I thank you for sharing that. That's pretty cool.
Most of telehealth though is talking, and I think that's kind of a good place to start. I imagine that any trans individual who makes an appointment with this new telehealth provider is going to want to kind of audition them. You know, we get kind of, and I'm putting air quotes around that, we get auditioned all the time by patients who
That makes sense.
are checking to see, is it safe for us to know this information?
Right, in a community that is targeted with violence that way,
Right.
it would make sense that you would want to feel comfortable and to feel safe with somebody who is such a big part of your life in keeping you healthy and in helping you be the best that you can be. So, yeah.
Right. So I would think if anybody is, and if somebody maybe gets most of their care out of UCSF, but needs a local person to kind of coordinate care at some points, this is a resource that would be, any of the providers that are located physically in Del Norte County can try and be helpful, but this individual seems to have not only a comfort level with providing care, but also a knowledge base that is not something that we've had here before. So super exciting.
That is exciting.
Yeah. So, go ahead and give him a call. I'm not sure when he's going to be online, although he was at a provider meeting. So I imagine he's starting to see patients.
And that is just for Del Norte, or is that Del Norte and Humboldt?
Well, the telehealth person could go anywhere, right?
That's what I'm thinking,
That's
but
the
I'm not
beauty of
sure.
telehealth. I think it might be helpful for, David Horowitz is a PA in Humboldt. He for years was at the 10th Street Clinic and has been associated with Open Doors probably since the very beginning. But he also threatens to retire every once in a while. And, this might be a way to not really fill David's shoes, because anybody who knows David knows what an immense, amazing soul he is. But at least have a resource there that in David's absence wouldn't leave the community completely untended to. So that's
good.
I think, super helpful.
That is super helpful.
Yeah. And then, of course, I'm there on Saturdays from 10 to 2 o'clock, and I like to call that clinic the No Rules Clinic, so I can help pinch hit, but I don't have the expertise that apparently this guy has.
Okay, that's
So,
good.
Yeah.
Does mean it's not good that you don't have the expertise, but it's good that you can own that and be honest, but two,
right.
that you're willing to be there to help in a
Right.
pinch.
Yeah, and I am trainable. I can look up a protocol and stuff like that, but so I'm happy with the amount of care, at least the growing amount of care that we have. I'm happy that we can have a Trans Day of Remembrance in a respectful community that's going to support each other. I'm interested, and since I've never been to it, how it's going to go on Thursday night. I will be there tabling, and I do have some pretty worthy swag, if anybody's interested in swag.
Everybody loves swag.
Everybody, yeah. So thank you, Open Door Clinic or Del Norte Community Health Center for providing swag. But there will be a lot of other people there that'll talk to community services, and then also a lot of people who are going to be, of course, speaking in the Night of Remembrance and demonstrating the resilience of the community.
That's awesome. I did get a chance to Google some things too. So if you're trying to figure out how to be an ally to our brothers and sisters in the trans community, there is the Human Rights Campaign, and that is online at hrc.org, and that's resources for people who are trying to learn and grow and to be an ally, because we don't want to put that emotional labor onto somebody who is so
Right.
concerned about their safety and making it day to day.
Right.
Then there's also PFLAG, so that's pflag.org for resources for transgendered people. For in our community, you can look there if you can't find it locally to find those resources. And then there's the Gender Health Center, and then of course there's always the Trevor Project. So that one is available 24 hours a day, and that is a crisis line. And I would encourage anybody who is struggling to please use the Trevor Project.
Yeah,
our
amazing people, amazing legacy for an awful event.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it is such Good Lord. Our community is better with you here, despite what anybody says, despite what you're going through. We need you here.
Yeah.
We want you here, and
Yeah.
you are loved and accepted.
Right. I also wanted to take a little bit of time, if I can pivot to a different subject, and this is regarding UIHS. So I think it's been known to the community for a long time that Dr. Blundell's is closing his practice and starting kind of a new step in his next journey, at least his next medical journey. But it was announced today that he will be joining UHS. It's thought that he's going to be there 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays. This is for people who are patients at UIHS. And in my role as a provider there, I'm going to be particularly looking forward to him in a consultative role. So some of the more complex internal medicine patients who might be getting the bulk of their care, let's say, out of the area, but still need some boots on the ground, he would be a wonderful resource. And so if you are a patient of the Del Norte UIHS, either Smith River or Klamath included, that you could very, very soon, in fact, I'm told he's on the schedule now, make an appointment with Dr. Blundell or talk to your regular primary within the system if you have a concern that you think might need a seasoned internist. Because he's taken care of this community forever.
He has. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty cool. And I think that it's probably difficult for him to be leaving his private practice because he's almost the last guy standing except for Caldwell and Son.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think Caldwell and Son do in-person patients really anymore. And I think they're down to the last of the handful of people that they'll continue to see. I don't think they have a full caseload anymore either.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
So,
I could be mistaken, but that was my understanding.
That's like the last of the people that dedicated their lives to this community.
Yeah.
And it's just not possible to have your own private practice anymore. But Dr. Blundell just does not have it in his heart to leave the dance, as we say, to go off call, as we say. So he's going to be joining UIHS, and we're kind of looking forward to him being able to continue his science and art, for the community in that direction at this point.
That's awesome.
Yeah, super
I'm
awesome.
glad he's sticking around.
Yeah. Well, you think of all those old kind of lions of the past, like Hawthorne is one, Sundon Caldwell is one, Mavris is one. Oh gosh, I'm blank. Casper.
I don't remember Casper.
Oh, Casper took care of so many people in this community, and I'm sure there's people that I'm forgetting. And also honoring Clint Pearson, who retired recently.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Abso-freaking-lutely.
An internist, and I remember him before, how his sickness savaged him, and I just adored working with him. He was an internist, he was a bright physician, he was super dedicated to the community, so we will miss him greatly.
Yeah.
But, they kind of live on with the new people that we're training.
Yeah.
So,
and all the lives that they've saved. So.
Amazing stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lynn, thank you so much for bringing the Trans Day of Remembrance, for talking about Dr. Blundell staying in the community and continuing to serve with our Native population. For those within the LGBTQIA plus community, I wanted to make sure that you understand once again that if you need the resources, if you are struggling with mental health, if you are thinking about suicide, that you have the Trevor Project's phone number. So it is, if you'd like to call and talk to a person, is 1-866-488-7386, or you can text START to 678-678. This is for adults and for our youth. You are valued, you are loved, you are wanted in our community, in our homes, in our workspaces, in our schools, on our sports teams, in our bathrooms.
In our bathrooms, for sure.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
We love you.